Welcome everybody to the Dallas Film Podcast. My name is Tony Armour, and I am. I keep wanting to say the Dallas Film Commissioner, but I'm no longer Dallas Film Commissioner. The former
No.
Dallas Film Commissioner, now head of production for talent, entertainment, finance, and this podcast is brought to you now by Southside Studios Dallas. So we're really excited about the big remodel of Southside Studios there. 3 big stages, 2 10,000 square foot stages, a 21,000 square foot stage, all of the amenities, green rooms, hair and makeup. So anybody who wants to shoot in Dallas, we've got awesome sound stages now, the biggest in the DFW area. So we're looking forward.
It is mind-blowingly big. It was fantastic to be there for the kind of the grand opening party and see what amazing work you've done to that space. Having worked in there, 10 years ago, it's incredible the facelift it's had.
Yeah, thank you. And for those that are listening, our guest today is Ian Loomer. Welcome, Ian.
Hey there, thanks for having me.
Well, why don't you give a quick little bio background for everybody that's listening?
Sure. So I've been working in the Dallas-Fort Worth market my entire career. Got a video production, creative agency background. I built a studio myself once upon a time. Right now, in addition to kind of operations work I'm doing mostly with creative enterprise teams, I am the volunteer president for the Dallas Producers Association. We are the oldest and largest professional trade organization in, I think, Texas. We've got over 300 members that meet monthly to engage on a variety of topics. In addition to that, I also work a lot with the TXMPA, the Texas Media Production Alliance. So real deep into community and fighting for film incentives and legislation. And this year's a really exciting time
to
be part of that and what's going on. And I'm so new to it, but I'm learning a lot at the hands of people who have been fighting for this for 20 years. So it's exciting to see that growth and change, and Southside's coming in right at the right time for all of that.
Yeah, we're really excited about that, to now have these stages open and ready, and for the possibilities of what could be happening. And on our previous episode of this podcast, I briefly mentioned that, hey, right now the state of Texas is looking at a $500 million incentive and bumping the percentage up to 30%, which if that happens, game over. Like game over. It's Texas and Georgia and everybody else.
House Bill 22 is titled "Making Texas the Film Capital of America."
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is coming out swinging.
Yeah, and
I love to see.
I think the thing about that is that, typically the fight in this kind of thing is state legislators. Hey, this doesn't help my little tiny town somewhere in Texas, my region that I represent, and how does this really help? But I think there's a Texas pride to the whole thing of, Texas should be the leader in the country, in the industry in this. It's already, leading in so many other ways. Why not take this from those pinko commie liberals in Hollywood anyways, right?
Well, and it's exciting. I think, the TMIP program and the hub zones and the MPDZ and all that, it's exciting when a production comes to your town, when you go and you're in El Paso and you think, nothing ever comes through here, nothing ever shoots. And then a big film production comes there, like has recently happened. It's exciting, and it brings a lot of work, and, people get to be extras, and it, uplifts the businesses from people going out and eating. And I think they've really shown that there's not only economic value, but there's just an excitement factor and a certain joie de vivre. Taylor Sheridan shooting in Fort Worth. I know people who are not connected to the film industry at all, who have been extras, who have gotten to be on site, and it's all they talk about for months. Yeah. And so there breeds a lot of excitement around that.
For sure. Was it Wes Anderson project that shot in El Paso, or is shooting in El Paso?
I don't think it was Wes Anderson. It was
the other Anderson.
What, if you had to ask me, yeah,
the other Anderson.
Yes.
Yes. Thomas. Like
three names.
3-name Anderson.
Yes.
Why am I blanking on it?
It's it was always given to me as an acronym, and I was like, okay.
We're hosting a film podcast here, and I can't remember.
I know.
Can't remember his name off the top of my head. Too much pressure. Too much pressure.
I got the phone up here
on the spur moment.
Googled it. Paul Anderson. Paul
Thomas Anderson.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
That's I knew there was a Thomas in there.
Yeah.
Paul Thomas Anderson. That's
right. I got to Google it real quick. I know. Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah.
That's right.
PTA was always the acronym for it.
Oh, that's funny. Has that already shot, or are they going to be shooting soon?
I think it's already shot. Don't
Okay,
quote me on
good.
that. I'm not super involved in there, but I know a couple
That's
of people
okay.
who were
Well, I know,
went
Drew.
out there and visited and were part of the set,
Good. Okay, it's probably already shot then. Well,
yeah.
that's
So I
awesome.
think it's already shot.
That's good. Well, and like the whole point is that this could be huge for the state of Texas as it
Yeah.
is in the year and 8 months or so that I was film commissioner there. The number of people that would email or call and say, "Hey, I just moved here from LA. I just moved back here from New York or LA or wherever else." Within the industry, and those are just the ones reaching out. So it's a massive group of people throughout the community there that are involved in this, and that's just Dallas, right? Then you start expanding to
Yeah.
other parts of the state. Obviously, Houston is massively huge city, and
Hmm.
everybody thinks of Austin, but there's a lot more going on in Texas than just Austin in this
And
industry.
Texans are so mobile. It's not unheard of for someone in Dallas to work local in Houston.
Oh yeah,
So
yep.
I'm seeing members of even the DPA who are Waco, who are Odessa, who are Midland,
Hmm.
who are not necessarily in the DFW area, but because Texas is we're friendly to our own citizens, which is great. But we're not afraid to hop in a car and drive a couple hours to
Yeah,
be on a project. You're seeing people kind of spread out, which also brings work other places,
yeah.
right? Hill Country Film Festival last year happened in Fredericksburg, and there's a decent crew base that operates around that community because of cost of living, and they like being out that way, and it's easy to get to Austin to shoot if you want to work. It's just kind of interesting to see how the pockets are growing.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and the world has become so small. Everybody knows that. I'm based in Florida, and it was hard for me to
Hmm.
give my Florida life and home and everything that I've had here
Right.
for 30 years, which is, why when the opportunity, to come to Talon came along, that I did that so that I could be back in Florida full time. So I did a lot of when I was film commissioner, I did a lot of flying back and forth on weekends, Thursday nights, Monday mornings, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. But it's 2 hours. Like
Yeah.
I was in Orlando over the weekend here in Florida. It took me longer to get to Orlando with the insane traffic on I-4 than it does to be in Dallas. And I was like,
Yeah.
I could have been in Dallas right
Yep.
now in the same amount of time. So it's an easy thing, and it makes Texas really accessible when it
Hmm.
comes to productions happening there. And I've been talking with a major studio that has lots of other studios under it that they work with, and they want to come to Texas,
Yeah.
and they're excited about all the possible changes that are happening here. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on that. We will know by May
Yep.
exactly what's happening, and it's not that far away.
And in April, we're bringing in Fred Poston with the TXMPA to come to Dallas to talk about what's happening,
Great.
to give kind of the debrief of incentives and what the future looks like and what legislation looks like. Hopefully, I'm working with Taylor and the Fort Worth Film Commission and Katie, our new Dallas Film Commissioner, bring them in to kind of talk about what to see from a city side perspective. But we've done this now a couple of years. I know
Yeah.
you did it with us 2 years ago when you were brand new.
Hmm.
And it's a really great turnout. We'll get 250 people to come and just to get the lay of the land, because everybody's got a project they want to work on.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knows somebody who's engaging in this, and this is the info that people want.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, talk a little bit about the DPA. What do you guys have coming up next? You've got a February meeting coming up, correct?
Yeah, February 11th. So I don't know if this will be out by then or not, but if it's out, February 11th, we're doing speed networking. It's a little fun Valentine's, find your work match kind of thing. It's become a crazy popular event.
Okay.
So we're a week out and we already have like 120 RSVPs for it, which is really exciting. We're going to be doing it at AMS Studios. They're a great sponsor of the DPA. They've got a new LED wall that's beautiful with a ceiling that they put in with Jason Starnes and Shot Caller. So it's always exciting to have that as a background. It creates a really cool vibe,
Yeah.
and you will meet in a very structured way. 100 different people and have 100 little micro conversations to then follow up with later to go, how do we work together? How can I pull you on a set? Are you hiring? And so we started doing it once every other year, but we kept getting asks for it. So we had a really successful one, I want to say September, October last year, and we're already bringing it back because this is the meat of what DPA is, right? Is it's all about networking and connection.
Yeah, and that's the question that I always got in Florida, and people always ask me in Dallas if they were just getting
Mm,
started in the industry, wanted to know, well, what should I do if I want to meet people in the industry, or those people that had moved to Dallas or back to Dallas from other areas, like where can I meet people in the industry? And I was like, well, you've got these networking organizations, DPA primarily,
yeah,
and you've got film festivals. Where else do you want to meet people? Film
yeah.
festivals don't happen every week. It feels like it in Dallas though, because there are so
We're
many of
coming up on it.
them.
It's that
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
it is that time of year that you get so many of them going. But but the DPA is a great way to just get yourself integrated into the community and start meeting people, basically.
Yeah, that's a lot of what it is. And I tell people all the time, if you're new to the Dallas area and you're looking to network, don't feel bad if you come to an event and you don't get work right away. It
Of
is a
course.
process, especially students. So I go around and I'll talk to students a lot. And the conversation is, people want to meet you 4 or 5 times before they go, you know what? Yeah, let me pull you on a shoot. They have somebody drop, they've met you a couple of times, they know you're around. And then that becomes the catalyst to kind of build a relationship for a long time. So it's kind of a consistent presence to come to these events, to engage with people, to make those connections, to follow up and form friendships outside of even the DPA. Because in Texas, especially, people want to hire people they know and they like and they trust and they're friends with. It's not
Yeah.
a they may hire you to get ahead situation. They want people in their crew who they know they're going to like spending 10 hours a day with for 3 weeks, and that's how you get on those sets.
Yeah, absolutely. And people who know they're going to be reliable, they're going to do the job right, and which
Yeah.
is why, if you're a student or starting out, you're going to volunteer and you're going to work for free on projects just so that people get to know you and get to learn, what you're about.
Yeah, it's I feel bad sometimes when I talk to students and I can see kind of the light fade a little bit when they're like, "How do I get in?" I'm like, "Well, what do you want to be?" And they're like, "Well, I'm a director." I'm like, "That's amazing. That is aspirational. You are a PA. You
Right.
are a grip. You
Yeah.
are a coffee getter, and you can get paid for that work, and you can do fine in that. But don't introduce yourself as, well, I'm a DP." But I graduated 2 months ago. You love to shoot. You might be a great DP, but you have to build that trust and that
Yeah.
engagement, that relationship to officially call yourself that. Because these kids are so talented now coming out of school. They have access to gear and equipment that you and I never did.
Oh yeah.
And they're making films. They've been making films on their iPhones since they were 10, and now they've just got access to incredible cameras and lenses and tool sets. And some of these programs are wonderful. So they're able to showcase a really broad talent, but you still got to start kind of at that entry level and pitch yourself as, well, I'm a PA. I love to direct, and that's where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
I'm a PA, I'm a grip, but I'm really trying to get into the camera department. How can you help me do that?
Well,
And that shows that relationship.
yeah, and so much of it isn't just knowing how to work the camera and point it and frame something great. Like if you want to be a director or a DP or whatever it might be, it's okay, you're a director, you're a DP. How are you working with the rest of the camera department? How are you working with the rest of the team? How are you managing that team? If you're directing, that means you're a manager. You're managing
Yep.
the people on the production. Granted, yes, the producers are managing it, but people look to the director as the leader that
Yeah.
is on set. And if you're 22 years old and you've got that, 50-year-old grizzled grip on set, how are you telling him, what you need without pissing him off because you don't know what you're talking about and he's been doing this for 30 years?
Sure.
So there's more to learning, to directing or whatever else than just making the thing. It's everything else that goes with it.
Sets are all about managing people. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And having been that 22, 23-year-old person who's, an AP or a producer trying to engage, it's a skill set you'll learn, and how to, manage up or manage as like a friend, coaxing them into it, taking their ideas instead of just giving orders, which I think a lot of times people think of production sets like almost like
Yeah.
a military, right? Like, the orders come from the top and they work their way down. And a lot of times it is like that because we're moving fast and we have, way more shots than we can do in a day to try and accomplish. But a lot of times it's so collaborative. You're really trying to engage and get your team on board. And it becomes, very much like how to win friends and influence people kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it very much, it's experience. It's if you're shooting one thing and then you've moved on and you're shot something else, and there's something that you forgot you wanted, or something you needed, or something else, and you've got to break those lights down and go back and reset them up to where you had before. You're gonna anger, quite a few people on the set. They're gonna have to go do the same work they did before, and
The
so
hackles on the back of my neck went up just talking about it. So.
yeah. So
Yeah.
learning that, like learning how to be a director, how to be a producer or DP, is more than just doing the thing. You got to learn what you're doing as well. So that's our dad moment for this podcast of yelling at everybody.
Congratulations, everyone.
Get off our lawn and do everything. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing. So these are all the free things you do that you don't make a living on, DPA and TXMPA. Talk about what you're doing, job wise, within the industry that you're really enjoying right now.
Yeah. So my company is a consultancy called Modern Creative Ops. And I found with my years of agency that there's kind of a gap in solving bespoke technical challenges, especially at kind of the agency or enterprise creative team level. And that shows itself in a lot of different ways, because no challenge is the same, right? So for one client, they are a 100-year-old business, and they don't have post workflow. They don't have it. Everything is a bunch of random drives stored around town. And so it's engaging with them and working with them on what makes good post-production, and how do we make sure that for the next 100 years, you can keep all of this data and have it available. And I'm not an integrator. I work with some of our great partners like Team Television or Texas Film Gear to bring in some of that post hardware. But there's a lot of not just how to use it, but why. I'm working with a couple of universities on installing virtual production walls, working with a great local integrator, DHD, who works part of View, who I know you know out of Tampa and Orlando.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so we're helping try and bring virtual production to educational facilities so that they can train the next level. We talk about broadening that workforce. I'm so big about how do we up level and upskill our teams, because that's the biggest complaint I hear from studios and productions coming in is, and I don't believe this is necessarily true, but there is a perception of, well, the talent base isn't here. We got to bring them in. And I see a lot of people being flown in from that. And there are arguments for and against. I understand, especially at some of the higher levels, we're still building some of that base, but we have an incredible crew base here, but we also do need to upskill. So I was really excited to see Studios 101, which is Taylor Sheridan's studio, partner with Fort Worth Film Commission and TCC to do their immersive program for PAs, Script Soup, I think. So you can take this class and get the certification and be ready to go for their program. So I'm kind of working with a university here to build a program like that, similar for virtual production. So that we can get that going.
And that's great. And I know of, one or two in the area that are bringing in.
I know you know who they are. I don't know if we can say them or not yet. I don't know if it's official.
It's a big deal. I mean, I don't think it's too big of a deal,
Yeah.
But we won't say it in case they're listening and they want it to be a secret. But they'll know that we're talking about them. So hi.
Right. Hi. They'll say that's us on LinkedIn, and that'll be fine.
That's right. And that's part of what we're doing at Southside as well. Our LED wall should be in place at the beginning of April. And so once we have that in place at the beginning of April, working with these different schools and universities and saying, hey, we got a wall, come in and use it for free. Like it's going to be a beautiful wall. And Jason Starn, shot caller that you mentioned, he is doing the install and the setup and everything of the wall. And so we're excited about getting it set up, and then not only having projects come in and using it and paying us to use it, which is part of why you're bringing it in, but being able to train crew and teach people what to do and how to use it. And we're excited for that as well.
There's so many virtual production walls in Texas that have been built from, Southside to Trilogy to AMS has theirs, XR214, Camp Lucky, Grace Point. I know A&M's building out in Fort Worth. I was just over Backlot seeing theirs.
And 2 years ago when I arrived in Dallas, there was, I think Camp Lucky was just that one, right? And then in just this
XR214, I think, was around in Grace Point, but Camp Lucky was kind of the premier.
Yeah. So just in a matter of 2 years, you just rattled off, 6 different locations that
Yeah.
have the LED walls basically.
And this is just in DFW because it's
Right.
expanding out. We have, Austin, Houston,
Hmm.
outside, the massive complexes and studios that are getting built. There's going to be a lot of virtual production stages, and we need competent people to run them, but also we need to train up that pipeline of kids who know how to operate it or can be an assistant on it or can
Yeah.
work on. So it's been really fun to engage not just with uh, kind of the student level, but also other programs. So I partner a lot with IGDA, the International Game Developers
Hmm.
Association, the Unreal Organization. They have a Texas chapter, VES, the Visual Effects Society,
Yeah, which Texas
Industry
Texas
Insights.
just last year got the official chapter, right? Because there was not
Yes.
a VES official chapter prior to last year.
I mean, I'm going to brag a little bit. I am a certified VES member. It's a hard one to get into. Like
Yeah.
DPA is, you got to apply and there's a process, but we're pretty open and inclusive as long as you have like a body of work and you're actually functionally working and you're not a jerk. We're like, yeah, come be a part. VES, you have to get like multiple recommendations. There's a national voting
Yeah.
process, like handwritten. It's a lot, but the benefits is really exciting to see what an international organization does. And the VES chapter is great. They're really fantastic, wonderful people who work on a lot of cool projects. And those meetups are great. So if you're in the visual effects world and are looking for a group of people to connect with, check out VES.
Yeah, Texas, I didn't realize was so big in visual effects and animation and video games before I got there a couple years ago. But now seeing, what's happening, it makes perfect sense, really,
Yeah.
for Texas to take over the film world,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to see the possibilities there. Fingers are crossed, and people are hard at work, behind the scenes in Austin and everywhere else trying to get this going. So I'm really excited
Yeah.
about that.
So one of the things I'm really having a lot of fun doing lately, both with my company, Modern Creative Ops, and with a couple other guys, we work on a little side hustle we call Innovative Babble, is a lot of AI and creativity. And I know that's
Oh
like a,
no.
oh no, are we saying the word? But it's been fascinating to dig into and fascinating to dig into from my perspective as a community leader, because I see it as a little bit protectionism, right? If we don't
Hmm.
understand how to use it, if we don't give the capabilities and the tool sets to our community to understand how to use it, well, then it's only going to be used by the Hollywood elites and producers, and that we need to understand as a community what's possible, what's capable, what's acceptable. And so this has been a lot of fun to really kind of dive into what that looks like. And I've been doing talks all over Texas
Yeah.
on this, and I haven't been nailed to the wall yet, which has been exciting.
Well, and
People
so
have been really
many, so
receptive.
many, so many of the tools that, when we talk about AI in this particular industry, we're not talking about, writing a script that's going to take a screenwriter's job, right? You're
Right.
talking about the technical tools that make things faster and more efficient and make things better, even to a very small perspective, talk about like Adobe Premiere, how you can now. I remember when you used to have to, it wasn't that long ago, if you wanted a transcript of whatever it was, you sent it off to this company and you had to wait a couple days and they would send it back and they charged you per minute or hour, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody would sit there and literally listen to it and type it all out. And now in a matter of seconds, it spits out your entire transcript. You can go through whatever fixes, you can output the SRT file. So you've got subtitles and all the stuff you need. Oh my God, such an amazing thing that
Yeah.
is necessary and needed. And okay, that person in India who now was typing out whatever audio
Right.
file or video file I sent to them, they don't have a job anymore, they're doing something different. But hey, we don't have milkmen
It
anymore either.
it also just changes where, with a lot of this stuff too, it changes where the work is done.
Yeah.
There was a fascinating video that came out a couple years ago, with the first like Photoshop and someone demonstrating it live on the news because they were like, this is going to take away photographers' jobs and nobody's going
Right.
to have a
Right.
job anymore. And it was, Photoshop 1.0, and it
Yeah.
was rough, but it was still fascinating to see what it was then and the capabilities it had to what it is now.
Right.
And I would argue it's given people more jobs.
Sure.
And so, yeah, you're right. It's a lot of these little, I kind of break it down into a few different categories of like the creators, which is the mid journeys, right? The runways, the whole hog, but really the utilities is where this thing sings,
Hmm.
where you're able to extend a shot, clean out the background, fix up audio, make changes to things in a way that make our job as creators easier, faster, better. And so there might be a conversation about how do we build differently. If you're in an hour based world, how do you account for this in more of like a project based or fee based world? Because these tools are making it easier, but at the same time you also have to pay for a lot of them. And
Yeah.
so where does that fit into your business process? But yeah, it's the tool set is huge, and there's new ones that pop up every day. There's new ones that close down. I start every presentation by like, I'm going to tell you right now, I updated this thing this morning and it is already out of date. Like by the time this presentation will be over, two of these companies will have been bought, sold, or gone away.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just the nature of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just look at, a week ago, um, everybody was, ChatGPT, OpenAI, and then all of a sudden, Chinese company DeepSeek comes along and says, "Hey, look what we did for a fraction of the price," and everybody
Yeah.
freaks out, and people have calmed down a little bit, and started questioning, and be like. For those people who don't know, who might be listening, DeepSeek is a large language model platform program, just like ChatGPT, essentially. But
Mm-hmm.
where ChatGPT, they've spent billions developing it. DeepSeek says they spent $6 million, but
Which is not quite true.
not quite
Yeah.
true. That doesn't include the software engineers. It doesn't include this. It doesn't include that. It doesn't include many things. And are they even telling the truth that really costs that much? So
Yeah.
but the process of how they put it together and what they did to train this was
Mm-hmm.
different from what ChatGPT did, which was a very unique and innovative model. And I equated two people said, "Hey, you've got a smaller budget, so you had to be more creative." Same kind of thing. If you've got a small budget film, and you've got to be creative on how you're going to shoot things and do things. You don't have a $200 million Marvel budget, but you've got, whatever you've got, you find ways to get creative and make things work.
Some of the stuff like the in painting, I think is brilliant. With Adobe Photoshop and Premiere, you're gonna be able to do this. You can do it in a lot of like different tools. You can, you can't on a indie film budget pull down all the signs on a street. But
Mm-hmm.
now with AI, you can come in and do little paint jobs and fix up and clean up the signs and make them disappear. And it's what are these little ways you can innovate in a film to make your budget go further? And I spent a lot of time talking about that. How do you use it for the things that you wouldn't be able to do anyway?
Right.
Or how do you use it for pre-pro or marketing to make your pitch better, right? If you don't have the budget or the money to hire someone to do music for, your deck so that when you're going around you can give a feel to it, well, like let's go to Suno and create something that's not good, but it's not bad, and it
Yeah.
gives an aesthetic and a feel to what you're doing. Storyboards. I'm a terrible artist, and often storyboards aren't in the budget for
Right.
what I'm doing, but now I'm able to go, great, I can use this tool and generate something that is halfway decent. That way the team understands what I'm trying to accomplish, what the vision is, and what we're doing, but it's not as good
Mm-hmm.
as if I was able to hire someone. And the goal is to eventually hire that person, but
Yeah.
that's finding those steps to get there.
Well, and it's not like it's magic, right? Like
No.
storyboards is a good thing. There is a storyboard program out there. I think it's called like Storyboard AI or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really create some amazing storyboards, but you have got to be so detailed, and like you could spend hours just doing a couple of storyboards, just
Yeah.
a very simple ones. And so you think about the amount of time that it takes to do that, or hiring a storyboard artist. A lot of times it's just faster and easier to hire that storyboard artist, or that storyboard artist is now working in storyboard AI, and they can do it
Mm-hmm.
better and faster than you can do it trying to do it yourself, unless you're a teenager and you just don't have anything else to do with your time and you're kind of learning.
Right.
You're
Days.
learning
Oh,
it.
the days.
Yeah. So these tools, that while it's an AI tool and while it's a creative tool, like you said earlier, it's not taking jobs away. It's creating jobs and extending jobs to a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent, giving more possibilities, because because time is valuable, and people don't have endless amounts of time to learn all of this stuff and do certain things. So somebody's got to do it for you.
As a test, some buddies and I, we shot, essentially we were going to make an anime in AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for a project that's fantasy based. And so the anime made sense. We also thought it would be very forgiving than trying to do something cinema real, that, there's a lot of things you can get away with in like an animated kind of world. And I think people are shocked when I talk about it and I show the steps to it. we hired talent that looked kind of like what we want the end product to look like, because in AI, when you're generating, the closer you get, the better you're going to be able to generate. You're not going to be able to make a 200-pound man, be the AI of, a 95-pound girl. Like, it just doesn't translate that way. The AI can't read when you're trying to upload these reference images. We wrote the script, we did all the wardrobe, we made props that approximated the actual props with fantasy weapons and guns, and these are out of like cardboard and plastic and stuff like that. But we still had to spend some time to get something that looked. We shot physically on green screen, multi-camera. We didn't have to spend a lot of time lighting. We threw up like space lights. There wasn't the nuance there, but we
Yeah.
still had to go and physically shoot. We spent a whole day. And then afterwards, it's been weeks of processing footage, doing clips,
Hmm.
cutting segments, bringing it into After Effects and animating the bits, because you can't throw everything in an image and say create. AI right
Right.
now is really good at doing one thing. This character, let's do that. That box, let's do that. This background person, let's do that. So you generate all these disparate images and then you put it all in After Effects and then you animate it in After Effects, and maybe you do a final upload through it and like try and get it to do
Yeah.
like a final pass. But honestly, we found better with just coming out of After Effects. So at the end of the day, you look at, well, Ian, you had to do pre-pro, you had to do all this, you had to shoot, you had to post it all, you had to put it in a motion graphics program. Like, why didn't you just hire an animator to do it? And that's a great question.
Yeah.
We did it as a test to understand, how do we get the best effect, and how do we have conversations with clients who just go, well, can't you just make that in AI? Well, no is the answer. No is the answer.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It's just, people just don't understand what it is. Like AI is just it's a term for, the devil. It's like AI
Yeah.
equals devil. So and
Yeah.
so they just, but not knowing what it is, how it works, and it's like, oh, if you want to, I create. So you'll see on YouTube there are tons of these videos. It's like 1950s Panavision Star Wars or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, and done in AI, and they're super cool.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine that the amount of actual hours and time that it took to put that 60-second trailer together, people are spending 100 hours or something like that doing it. So it's not.
And $500,
Yeah.
it's 100 hours and a lot of money to get that effect going like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
So
is nice.
it's.
What I do love it for, though, is virtual production,
Hmm.
for backgrounds. It's really
Yes.
cool in that aspect. So I worked on a job where we had like 15 interviews throughout the day, and each interviewee got to come in and kind of talk about what they wanted their background to be. And so quickly in AI, we generated the background, threw it back there, added a little bit of, softening, a little bit of
Hmm.
bokeh, to give it some depth of field. And these are all plate work, right? We're not tracking, we're not
Yeah.
doing any
Yeah.
real
Yeah. You're just standing in
for
front of
heads
it.
up.
You're not moving. It's not
Yeah.
a moving background. Yeah.
But for, these people who aren't talent, who aren't actors, who are real people, like, this became a lot of fun for them to come and go, ooh, well, I'm being interviewed. What do I want my background to be? How does it help tell my story?
Yeah.
And we found that it's a really effective way to kind of on the fly generate some
That's
stuff.
cool.
And,
What were you using to create it? How were you creating those backgrounds?
a couple different ways. Vue has a really great software
Mm-hmm.
that has all that built in there, and you
Oh
can
yeah.
previs a lot
The
of
View
that.
One
The Vue OS
OS.
is the software that runs all of that.
Gotcha.
And it's fantastic. And they've even now got like depth map extrusion. So if you do have like a Mars tracking system, then you can do a little, pivot on the wall, which is really cool. But honestly, Midjourney is great for that. There's a new one, Kling AI is one I've been getting a lot of really great results out of, especially for making photos move. If you're looking to do that, some people would bring in a photo.
Yeah.
And this tool is great because you can throw it in there and add a little bit of like animation to it
Yeah.
very quickly. And then you have just a little, so say your outdoor scene, right? It's going to look weird if it's static.
Yeah.
You added just a little bit of motion. The clouds move, the trees blow. It's a lot of fun. And then
That's
suddenly
awesome.
you're in a real space. And
Yeah.
so it's giving just incredible amounts of flexibility on the fly. You know, you
That's
don't have to
cool. And
spend 3 weeks.
is that creating it in? So if you're creating that plate on that background there, is it creating a like just a video file, or are you creating something in Unreal, or like what's the
This
thing that it
is
creates that it then goes on screen? Because obviously, if you have that motion and that movement, say for an outdoor scene, you're just standing outside in front of some trees or whatever,
Mhm.
it's just not a static image. So what is that file that it creates? How does that work?
Yeah, so I don't exactly know view what it's creating at the end. I think it's
Yeah,
akin to an MP4 or an image,
yeah,
but I could be very wrong on that. But a lot of times we were just creating MP4
yeah,
files and
yeah.
from my phone, casting it directly to the LED wall
Makes perfect
and able
sense.
to integrate like that. Same for photos; they're just JPEGs. You know, the Unreal workflow. I love the Unreal workflow, and there's so much control there. But as we talked about, we have it's hard to sometimes get
Yep.
Unreal files, and it's a big process, and you really have to think about the pre-production of that and making sure that you have the right assets, that it's been tested. And so, especially with smaller productions, smaller walls on the fly, generating some of these backgrounds quickly has just kind of up leveled production and capabilities, and it gets your foot in the door and that taste of
Yeah.
virtual production to go more.
And I think that's what most people are doing nowadays is, a lot of, like you said, that just plate stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a plate, it's just a video, it's just a background.
Yeah.
The actor, the speaker, or whatever can just stand there and move in front of it. It doesn't need to completely track with them.
No.
Even, car stuff. It's just it's driving plates and then the car's in front of it and then they're,
Yeah.
they're shooting it or whatever kind of thing and don't
Yeah.
have to create it all in Unreal. There's a lot of solutions that people are coming up with that are really creative and fun, that's for sure.
Especially if you shoot, 8K and you have the capability to zoom in and play around a little bit with it, it's going to be good. And, we're talking about AI. There's a lot of really great tools that are even free as well for video to do some of that depth extraction. So you can get a little bit more play on 20-second scenes, right?
Yeah.
It's trickier if you're driving or doing something, but if you're outdoors and you have a video and you want to add some more depth to be able to see around some things, there's some incredible tool sets through specifically like Comfy UI, which is a program that helps generate AI through a variety of workflows and tool sets to pull that data and imagine what's behind. And that's really innovative.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we haven't gone too nerdy and down a rabbit hole where we're losing people here
I
on
could
the
go so nerdy on all of
on
this.
the
Yeah.
podcast. So we've got a wide variety of people who listen to us, which I was super excited to hear that we took a little break, in podcasts from kind of sometime in the fall until now, a couple of months off there, and people
Hmm.
were emailing Austin at the Film Commission saying, "Hey, when's it coming back?
Hey,
When are we gonna have more
we're
episodes?"
jonesing. We need
Yeah,
it.
I had people
Yeah.
who would say that, "Hey, I've listened to every episode, all 50 episodes or whatever the podcast." So that's really cool
Nice.
that we've kind of built this audience. So just want to say thank you to everybody that's listening to this. That's become
Absolutely.
our consistent fan here on the Dallas Film Podcast. So what else we got coming up here? You've got we talked about your speed networking event on February 11th. April, the TXMPA and Taylor from Fort Worth and Katie Dallas Film Commissioners are going to do a little talk about the incentives and what might be happening with
Hmm.
that. May, you've got the Texas Production Expo at Grapevine. Tell me a little bit
Hmm.
about that.
The Texas Production Expo is the largest film and cinema production expo in Texas. It happens at the Grapevine Convention Center. It's a 1 day event. It is totally free for anybody who wants to come. And we'll have vendors there. It's like a mini NAB, right? It's a mini
Yeah,
National Association of Broadcasters. So we'll have reps from Canon, Sony, Panasonic, Blackmagic, lighting vendors, Godox, Aperture, sound vendors, like Sennheiser and DPA and Electrosonic and all of that. They show up there as well as local vendors, and it's completely sponsored by some of these incredible companies or integrators in town. Team Television is kind of our key sponsor for this. Texas Film Gear is a big sponsor. Dependable Expendables and a variety of other local businesses to support the community. And it's all for free because we all want people to understand and get their hands on gear if they can't make it to Vegas for NAB. In
Yeah.
addition to that, we'll run seminars throughout the day, tech seminars from some of these vendors talking deep about gear, and then more life skills, how to get into the business, how to do your taxes, what's the latest innovation and creativity. We had a big AI seminar workflow at the end of the last one that was packed. Whole house was packed. It was fantastic. In addition, you'll be able to talk to, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth Film Commission all have a table there. You can get really one-on-one about a project. We have representatives from other local organizations there. There's coffee in the morning. There's a happy hour at the end. We had like over 1,000 people last year. It was
That's
insane.
awesome.
It's a
That's cool.
massive event. It's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of, we started a month ago planning for this
I'm
thing.
sure. Yeah, of course.
And we're hoping to get it to grow bigger and bigger. So I'm already in conversations about 2026 and how do we take it to the next level, and be really put. If Texas is going to be the film capital of America, then
Right.
we need to have the expo of America for all of this, and really lean into bringing the community together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, anything else beyond that? That is in May that you want to talk about? Obviously, June, Oak Cliff Film Festival is coming up too. And so over at the Texas Theater, and Ashton and Barack do a great job in putting that on. Excited to see what they've got happening for Oak Cliff this year.
Yeah, those conversations and events have started. We have DIF coming up as well
End of
too.
April. Yep.
Dallas International Film Festival, and now that Dallas is Oscar qualified and DIF is an Oscar qualified festival,
I know,
that's
it's
really
amazing.
exciting to see more of that here in town. So hopefully we'll be getting bigger and better films. Oak Cliff is Ashton always puts it great. It's your favorite neighborhood film festival. It just keeps growing every year. It's a big house party with incredible filmmakers and access. And just a heart and soul to it that is really a reason I support this festival every year. And love what
it's
they
great.
put together.
It's cool to have the different kinds of festivals. So
Yeah.
Dallas International, end of April. Partners with the Virgin Hotel. That is Oscar qualifying. And when we say Oscar qualifying, people have to understand what that means is
Yeah.
if your short film wins one of the juried awards, then it qualifies as a short film for the Oscars, basically. Your feature film isn't going to get qualified, your documentary, there are different things that are needed for that. But Dallas, as an Oscar qualifying city now, talk to Rebecca Smith, the Film Festival doctor. She'll be able to talk you through that and tell you. And she's done a couple of podcasts as well. We've talked about that, so you can find Rebecca's podcast. And
she just got done too with like a roadshow tour. Did one in Dallas at the Texas Theater, did one in Fort Worth, I believe, as well.
And we did one.
We did one in DMAG or something like that. Dallas Observer.
Yeah, we did one last year with her. There's an earlier episode of the Dallas Film Podcast where we talk about that as well. And so you've got that. And then Oak Cliff Film Festival, which is kind of like a punk rock film festival too. So it's cool. It's a cool balance. Well, Ian, anything else before we wrap up?
No. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this and kind of hawk the Texas filmmaking community. All I can say is if you are listening to this podcast and you're in DFW or even a larger outside the city, we move around and there's events, not just with the DPA, but some of these organizations. And I try and share out as many as I can. Get involved and get engaged. Things are about to really start blowing up. And so if you're an animator, join the animation organization. If you're a VFX, join VES. If you're into production, there's for all aspects of production have a group where you can start kind of really diving in and developing those relationships. And we all collaborate. And so there is a quiet progress to do like a big mega mixer and try and bring Southside 2.0, right? Well, let's bring everyone together.
We'd be happy to do that mega mixer at Southside. We can figure that out. We've got we just pulled off 3,000 people over there. We know we can do it then, and this mega mixer would be like 1,000 or something probably. So who knows?
But it would be an incredible targeted amount of people who are very focused on connection. So that's exciting to see.
Good. Awesome. Well, Ian, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Dallas Film Podcast, brought to you by Southside Studios Dallas.